Yeah, I really enjoy doing the basketball side. I have my new app, Small Player Big Play, which we've been doing a lot of streaming, and original programming has been the big thing that we launched this year too. So a lot of my day is tied up with not only working on Small Player Big Play, looking for a job since I lost my regular one, and just following high school sports.
Okay, awesome. Hey, the record button wasn't working, but that's okay. We're good now. Again, Dell Jackson LLhoops. We'll get back to Jeff here in a minute. We're going to go into John Walk. What's going on, John? Introduce yourself a little bit. Give us a little rundown, and then we'll go from there.
Well, I have ties to a lot of you folks who are on this call today. Mr. Jackson was one of my high school math teachers back in the day. Me being a Penn Manor alum, having played basketball, I think the first time I faced off against a Warren Goodling coach team, I may have been like a summer league game, and when I was in middle school, and I think I ran into him at the Turkey Hill nearby afterwards. That was kind of my first interactions with him. So it's an honor. I grew up watching his team, so it's an honor to kind of be able to interact with him kind of as a colleague now. And the guy who's next to me, Mr. Reinhart, my colleague at LNP Lancaster Online, he's been doing this forever. He can talk about that here in a second. I think this is my 5th or 6th season now covering LL League boys basketball. So that's kind of where I'm going into, still kind of, learning some names and some history as I go along here. But I grew up, going back to, the Perry Patterson years and even a little bit before then. So probably, I don't know, mid-90s, I started really going to games with my dad, watching basketball around the LL League. So that's kind of how far back I go. So thanks for having me on.
Nice. Hey, we got Eric Thomas. Eric Thomas comes to us from the, what do we say, the audio and the visual. Go ahead, Eric.
Yeah, this is our 3rd year doing the stream, so it's going to be good to be back for those two. And we work with Bruce, obviously, on those two. And it's, pretty much our information comes from the guys that we're going to have on here. So, John, Jeff, thank you guys for all you do, because you're my daily read around. So, especially when it comes to LL stuff, you can't beat the work that those two guys do. But yeah, really looking forward to the season, assuming it starts, soon, assuming it starts before 2021, 2022, 2025, who knows? But whenever it starts, we'll be there.
Good. Hey, we're going to get into Eric's background too. We're going to talk about a little bit about football, because I got 1, 2, 3. I got at least 4 football guys, but now I got like what the guys consider the dean of the LL. I got Coach Goodling. And Coach Goodling, how you been? What's going on, buddy?
I'm doing well. I still work part-time down in Baltimore at a special needs school, so that keeps me busy. And I got to the gym this morning to make 100 jump shots before I went down there.
Nice.
And I enjoy working the games on the LL's live streaming. It's a lot of fun with Eric and you guys, just and Bruce and Dell, just talking about what's going on in the court, because I feel pretty much at home, watching what's going on. And even though I live in York County, I still feel like I'm an LL guy. And when I lived in York, nobody over here in York knew I lived in York, because they never saw me, because I was always in Lancaster.
Right. Yeah.
So it's all good. So
it's a little different. I know you did some microphone work for cable news for a while, but it's a little different sitting behind that mic than it is working practice schedules and working the refs like you used to do. What do you think?
Well, I didn't work the refs as much as I did in the early part when we were going against each other at Penn Manor Hempfield, because I got to know that didn't help too much. But I was able to give good scouting reports on each ref before the game to my players.
Nice.
But, it's you still get anxious to see a game when you're there, and then you think, and you watch the coach, and then what the coach does that night and the next day, and you say, wow, that is a lot going on. But you don't forget those days.
I know Coach Oldhouse used to, on his scouting report, he used to give the referee thing, and I'll tell you what he did, which drove me absolutely nuts. He would go back and watch a game, or he would have one of his statisticians. He'd say, hey, Joe Smith called 5 fouls against us, 10 fouls against Penn Manor. That's like, holy heck, Coach. It's like, it was crazy.
Out of the referee, which one called the most? Yeah, I get
Exactly. Exactly.
It's amazing. I've done that already. I have to tell you, I have done that. But
I
Nick
was
Brown knows that.
technical. I was just hoping a guy could make a foul shot once in a while. It was all good. All right, Andy, can you unmute, buddy, and say hi to everybody?
I can. What's up, everybody? You guys probably know me. Brackets, I guess, is my surname. Dell, what is this? I don't know, 6 or 7 years now we've been doing this. So I appreciate the Vine and letting me do this. Yeah, played at Warwick, obviously, as everybody knows, or well, was on the team, did a lot of sitting at Warwick, let's just say that. But no, I mean, I enjoy doing this. The cool thing about being on this platform now is I had a chance to see all these schools I never really had any interaction with. I've told you before, back in, the late 2000s, like a team like Warwick, we only saw the same like 6 teams all year round. And that was like the Hempfield Summer League and stuff like that. So, going to these schools that like, Pequay Valley, I had no idea where Pequay Valley even was. And now I think I'm like an honorary graduate from there. How many times I've been there. So no, I mean, it's just fun getting around. I guess my claim to fame is this would have been like the 6th or 7th year of seeing everybody in the league at least once, but I've already kind of admitted defeat on that this year. And I know that won't be happening. So hopefully I see a fraction of the teams this year, but who knows? So it's nice to be able to do this, and I really appreciate it. And hopefully that shines through in everything I do, because I'm actually still working as of right now. So I got my computer screen up and whatever. So going out to games is my sanity. That's my outlet. So if I don't have that, I guess I'm going to go even more stir crazy this year. So we'll talk about that later on.
All right, cool. All right. So what I have kind of scripted out here tonight, we got some things that I want to get to. We got some new news tonight, which we're going to talk about probably a lot. I'm going to start with Jeff. I'm going to ask each of our guests here tonight, kind of give us a typical day. Some guys have some different jobs, but like maybe if we're not worried about our job, what would be a typical day when you cover a game? And I know Jeff was out today, so we'll start with Jeff. Okay, Jeff, you're on, buddy. Give us a typical shot. Maybe you can talk about today.
During basketball season, we're talking about.
Yes.
Okay. Most days I'm up between 5 and 6 because I have no life, as John knows. Yeah, it's more than just showing up at 7 o'clock and covering a game. It's a ton more. So I just pulled these here. I've been doing this for probably 20 years. I have these sheets for every team that I cover.
Okay.
And it's every kid on every team and every game, every year. And these go back in my closet into the 90s. And I track every kid in the LL. Now I cover girls, remember. So I track every kid on every team, every game, every night. Box score, I go through, I note everything. So I'm very big on, I'm very thorough. And I think you guys know, if you read me, I'm very thorough. I don't like making mistakes. If I find out a kid had 6 points instead of 4, I panic and I lose sleep over it. And I got to get it fixed immediately. I really enjoy milestones and career numbers and stats. And that's a lot of work and that's a lot of time. And I mean, no lie. I mean, if it's 7 a.m., I'm in front of my laptop working on something. I'm doing a notebook. I'm doing stats. I'm going through box scores. As far as a game, I go to JV games. And some people will chuckle, but I go to 6 o'clock girls JV games. I kid you not. I would rather go to a 6 o'clock girls JV game at Northern Lebanon than watch an NBA game. Any day of the week. I'd like to see who's next, who's coming up. 9th graders, 10th graders. Cover the game. I end up somewhere exotic afterwards to write. My car, McDonald's.
Yeah, that's your go-to place.
That's my go-to spot. It's usually McDonald's, but I don't know if you can get in there anymore this season. But anyway, then I got to write a story on deadline and do that. And then I'm back home at 10 or 11. And same thing. I'm sitting right here at this laptop and I'm going through box scores and I'm writing a roundup or I'm looking for notes or I'm looking for, something. I usually try to write a roundup about all the games, and that entails getting all the stats, called into the office. So I have box scores. So it's a long day.
I'm going to come
5, 6,
back.
7.
Yeah, I'm going to come back to what you guys have to do, because I got some questions about the print media as opposed to the online source. So we're going to come back to that question in a minute. I want to hit Bruce up. Bruce, give us a typical. I know you worked with us with a live stream. Give us a typical live stream game from where you start, from where you're like, I got to get the equipment and all that. How does that work?
Well, the equipment is really a pretty easy part of it. The equipment itself. Now, making sure that you've got everything set up for a live stream game, as I think everybody who's been involved in those, it's all in the planning. I think Eric knows that for a fact. We were doing some football and along with basketball, but it's all in the planning. And just making sure that you've got the right people, making sure that you've got the correct, logistics related to the broadcast, very, very important. Always good to be familiar with the location, familiar with the coaches, familiar with your announcers, and try and get a feel for it. But, that's the thing that's bugging me now is, usually you have things all planned out for, weeks in advance. And that's the thing that I like to know is weeks in advance how things are going to fall. Now, it doesn't necessarily work out too well with winter weather, but, trying to keep things planned is the most important thing. And then dealing with, not only the games that we're streaming, but the games that, that I want to cover, as well as now, working on, my app, because we not only have, games that we want to stream in that, but we're also working with the original programming. I was doing, 2 shows myself, original programming in the app, and then coordinating, 2 other shows. So planning is, each and every day trying to be structured with a plan is probably the most important part with not only streaming games, but just covering, multiple media things as well.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And I know, let's talk to John. John, when we did the interview for the LL finals, you were giving me some insights on some of the things that you look ahead or you did before you even walked in the gym. Could you share a little bit about that? And also, I want you and Jeff, and I'll get you to start. Is like you guys are doing a weekly show. How has that come about? How does that work?
All right, so usually a typical game night for me, before I even get there, I'll try to have both rosters printed out. The players who are on that roster, I'll try to find their Twitter handles. I'll also have all the stats in front of me as far as how many points per game each team averages, how many three-pointers they're averaging in a game, what their foul shot percentage is. So that way, if something comes up, per se, like let's say McCaskey is held to under 60 points for the first time all season, I want to be able to make sure I have that knowledge right in front of my brain, and I don't have to go digging for that after the game because we basically have next to no time to write anymore as soon as the game ends. And 2, I like to get there early, not as early as Jeff. I try to get there at least an hour. So if a game starts at 7:30, I'll try to get there by 6:30 at the latest, just so that way I can get the roster books from both teams, see if any names are missing, if any starters are crossed out, so that way I can go to those coaches before the game and say, hey, what's going on here? And I like to, if I have a chance, chat with both coaches on both sides just to kind of get a feel, hey, what's going on? Any kids injured? What do you feel about tonight? What's kind of the keys to the game? So that way I can kind of have an idea as I'm keeping track of stats throughout the game to also be able to have in the back of my mind, oh, Lebanon wanted to attack McCaskey this way and try to help me as far as writing my game story and all that goes. As far as our weekly show, we're going to do an LL basketball roundtable. We're aiming for every Wednesday at 7 o'clock, which will air on the LNP Lancaster Online Facebook page. Everybody's welcome to watch on there and hop in the comment section, drop us any questions, whether it be basketball related or about your team or what have you. We'll try to have a different guest on at the top of each show, whether that be a coach or player. And we're talking both girls and boys basketball throughout the season.
That's 7 o'clock. That's on your Facebook page. Is that part of the subscription or is that free for everybody?
That's free for everybody. The LNP Lancaster Online Facebook page. Yep.
Okay. Make sure that you tweet me out so I can retweet it. You know, not that we have a lot of presence. I did look at John and Jeff's online presence today on the Twitter. I was pretty impressed because I looked at those numbers a couple years ago. I said, dang, those boys are kicking it. It's all good. It's good stuff. Hey, Eric, let's go to you. I know when we first started streaming and I invited you in and I used to do some things for you and Warren, but I found out I didn't have to do that. So give me an idea. like people don't understand that you do football, you do playoff football, you do Shippensburg, you do Central Dolphin. You got a lot of ties around. How do you prepare for a game?
Well, it really depends on what season it is. I mean, for our stuff, it's pretty much like read John stuff. If maybe it's a team in the Lebanon area, I'll go on their site and read, Pat Huggins. I tabulate. I keep every story that these guys write during the season so I can reference them. I have a notebook that I put stuff in so I can kind of like quick reference things if I need to. Make sheets up for games for keeping score that have notes on there. Not too much, but just enough that I can look at Warren or whoever we're doing the game with and kind of like lead them on to a point or, something I want to hit on, maybe like in the pregame or something like that. But I mean, for hoops, it's a lot easier. For football, it's kind of hard. You find that more of the basketball coaches are receptive to saying that you're going to come out there and do a game. Where football now, obviously at the college level, everything's given to you. So it's a lot easier from that standpoint. But high school football, I mean, I just did all 6 state finals 2 weeks ago and didn't have all the lineups. Cathedral Prep didn't reply to us. He got back to us late. St. Joe's was kind of pushing the envelope. And I think the one thing I would stress to coaches is like, from our standpoint, I don't think these guys realize like it's not just show up like John's saying. It's not just show up and do this stuff. You need to be prepared. Like you need to tell these stories and you need to know stuff about these kids. You can't sound like you don't know what you're talking about. So, I would implore, like, if we email you and ask you for a lineup or stats or something, just reply to us because we're trying to work too, just like you are by coaching the game. But yeah, it's a lot of prep. It's a lot of reading. Obviously, the deeper you get in the season, like when we get to the finals, if we have them this year, the tournament, there's going to be a whole season's worth of information to digest and more games to go back through, more boxes to look at, and more stuff to try to run down. But it's all right there. Everybody does a good job and everybody's great at having their stuff available and everybody's great about sharing everything. So it makes the job a lot easier, but it's definitely work to prepare for these things.
Yeah. Yeah. Coach Goodling, I want to ask you because you have a different perspective and I just know that somehow you get a hold of some coaches' insights that nobody else seems to be getting a hold of. So how do you deal with a game coming up? Let's say we're doing Cedar Crest and Hempfield. How would you get ready for that game? And is there any insights that when you look at during a game from a coaching point of view, it's like, okay, so I know that guy's going to do this or that guy's going to do that. And I know as a coach, you sit back and you say, well, maybe they should have done this or maybe they should have done that. And I know listening to you, I mean, you don't do that, but you are analyzing. I know you. I know what you're watching and I know how it goes. So give us a little insights on what you're looking at.
It's like Eric said, I try to read all the articles in the LL League that come up, and I follow your website, the LLhoops website, and I try to follow what's going on a daily basis. When it comes to a game, like for example, Cedar Crest, Hempfield, it's pretty easy to do that because you know the personality of the coaches, you know the style that they like to play, you know the strengths that they have, and they always try to play to their strengths. So it's an interesting chess match to see how that goes because they played each other so many times and they know each other. And sometimes nothing really changes on the strategy. It's just come down to the execution of the players being able to do it. But the fun part is just as the game unfolds to watch the adjustments that maybe somebody makes or just a certain player being able to take advantage of a situation and just see what happens. It's very easy to, once that game unfolds, to find things to talk about because it's happening right there in front of you.
Yeah. Nobody on this platform right here that I'm looking, nobody has any problems talking and figuring out some things to talk about when it comes to hoops. Let me bring Andy in here. Andy, how do you determine what games you're going to go to during the year?
So a lot of the same things that I do, a lot of these guys already talked about, and that's why this year's going to be so weird. So
I got his audio.
my main premise, what?
You got no video, buddy. Audio.
Oh, that's good for everybody else.
Yeah, it's good for us.
There he is.
There we go. So no, like I was saying, a lot of the things that these guys talked about is kind of how I determine where I'm going. And I basically start out every year, like I said, I want to see everybody at least once. So I basically knock out as many games as I possibly can early on, just to, kind of check every box I possibly can as far as teams go. And then what's going to be really weird with this season and the way I do things is I like to pick games for like the week in advance to figure out where the storylines are going to be. Like, I haven't seen AC yet, but Anvil I know is coming off of 2 really good wins. So how are they going to make that 3? Are they going to come back to the pack? How is that going to do with are they fighting for a league playoff spot? Are they playing Mennonite, who's, kind of on the way up like that? So yeah, I mean, a lot of that stuff I normally do is tossed aside this year, which is, it's going to be different. So, but that's basically how I do it. I try and knock out everybody I can as early on as possible, and then really try and figure out, what are the attractive storylines, and, what are some of the games that are more attractive that maybe some other people aren't talking about. Like, let's use Hempfield and Cedar Crest. Like everybody knows in Section 1, that's going to be a big game here regardless, but let's use this year as an example. What if Central and Calico are playing? Well, maybe not all the eyeballs are going to that game, but I'm just as interested in it. So that's kind of how I take it. I kind of like going on off the beaten path, so to speak, if the opportunity is there. So the other thing too is with finding these flows and, the games that sort of look attractive is, if you ever read my stories, is you'll really see my preambles get pretty lengthy. And that's because I have the idea of what the game should look like coming into it and the streaks and all that sort of stuff. So it's a lot of planning, like everybody else said. So planning we can't really do this year, but I don't know. We'll figure it out.
It's a good thing that the editor doesn't put you only have 300 words to write, because you have carte blanche on the number of words that you write on a story, dude. We appreciate it. All right, let's do this. Stuff happened today. Governor Wolf put a shutdown on athletics up to, I believe it's January 4th. I'm going to start with Eric. I'm going to give him the first shot. I told him no cursing, but he can say whatever he wants to say, and I will say anybody's opinions are their opinions and not the opinions of LLhoops. So go ahead, Eric. You're on, buddy. You asked. You got it.
Very fair. Look, I'll say this. I think that the move to push stuff back is a good one. I don't disagree with it. What I disagree with wholeheartedly with this guy, and I will flat out tell you, I think he's an idiot. I think he's the worst thing that's ever happened in this state. But it's the hypocritical nature of stuff. It's kids, 20 million kids can go to school, but 10 of them can't show up in a gym and play basketball for an hour and a half on a Thursday or Friday night. And that's the part that kills me, is that today he didn't say that schools have to be all online. So all those kids are going to go, but yet you can't have 10 people indoors. So what is it? I mean, how much longer are we going to cripple business around here? You go to businesses, Dell, for advertising to get our stuff on the air. I do it for football. I do it for some basketball stuff. You can't go to these people this year because they've been crippled by all this stuff for months on end.
Yeah. And let me interrupt you for one second. Did the dining close down totally, or outdoor dining only for restaurants?
Indoor and outdoor you can't do, but you can go pick up there. You can get most places. Yeah, most places are, I think a lot of people have just had it and they're just going to keep their place open. I know there's one in Hershey that says they're staying open. I know there's another one, I think, on the West Shore that's staying open too. But it drives me nuts that there was no confirmed transmission of this stuff during football season. There was no confirmed transmission team to team of this stuff during field hockey season. Why are we taking anything remotely fun away from these kids when their life has already been a living hell for the last 12 months? I mean, 9 months, whatever you want to say, 10 months. But you're telling them, okay, you can go to school and you can be in the building with your classmates, but practice, forget it. Game, forget it. That's the part that doesn't make any sense to me. And he doesn't have an understanding of this. If you watch what Governor DeWine did in Ohio during football season, he was adamant, we have to work together with the Ohio Association. We have to come to a common ground. We have to allow some fans in there. We have to have some process to let these people in. There was no debate as to whether or not they were going to have parents or people there. They had a great ticketing system in the state of Ohio. They had a great layout in the state of Ohio. They policed the games. They policed the sidelines. If teams were outside of their restricted areas or inside an area they shouldn't have been in, then they got told right away and they were penalized. And if they did it again, game was over. They forfeited. They were done for the year. So they put rules in place that everybody followed and everybody stayed safe. And in the state of Ohio, I don't think there was any official cases of transmission between team to team. So look, these things can go on. I don't think it's the worst thing in the world to push it back a little bit. I think it would be smart of the PIAA to come out and say, we're not going to start till February. We're going to run it February, March into April, and then do spring from April, end of April, beginning of May, and then into June. Let them play till the end of June if they have to for baseball. Who cares? They play till the middle of the month anyways, and these kids are graduating.
They play the end of June. That's
yeah.
I mean, the middle of June, people are graduating and then are playing the state championship. I mean, they've already, some of them got to run back and forth for their graduation.
Exactly. So what's the difference if we push that back a little bit? And I think the headbutting between those two sides, between Wolf and between the PIAA, it's got to come to a head at some point. The PIAA can't win this situation. If they say we're going to do this, Wolf just says, fine, you're shut down. It's as simple as that. They can't defend themselves all the way to the very end of it. They were adamant they were playing football. They got through it somehow, but they need to do the proper thing in this point. I won't say right thing, but proper thing in this point. And they need to just come out and say, we're going to amend the schedule. We're pushing it back. State finals are going to be in April. We're going to keep it the way it is and just have the 12 district champs. I wish they'd keep it that way for the rest of the time, but they won't. But they have to amend that somehow. It's just the fact that this guy continues day after day after day after day to say one thing, do another, say another thing against what he already said. He's an idiot. I don't care if any of you guys agree with me. I don't care if anybody watches.
Edit that out, can't you, Dell?
He's an idiot.
I can, but he hasn't cursed yet, so we're good. I'm telling you, we're good. Hey,
I respect Dell. I respect the pizza parlor. I'm not going to curse for you. He's an idiot, flat out.
I love the pizza parlor. Bruce and I got indoor dining. I think it's probably our last dining for at least a month, but we got inside the other day. Let me bring in Jeff and maybe John. Jeff, were you doing the virtual live stream when the PIAA guys had their meeting? I think it was on Monday.
No, Mike Gross was covering that.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
we know the information out of it.
Yeah, well, let's throw in John and Jeff and say, okay, what are your thoughts? The PIAA comes out and there's this big letter and a superintendent and some of the principal association, and the PIAA comes out and says, you know what, we're good. It's local. You guys go ahead. We're good. We'll push the championships back so you can make up games. So let me bring in Jeff and John and either or and talk to that, because to me, I get a little confused. It's like, aren't these government bodies together? They're not. We're coming out with different things all the time. As Eric says, it changes. Like one time we're playing, next time we're playing with masks, next time we're not playing with masks, next time the referees have masks, which I don't know how that's going to work. But
I should pick an opinion and stick with it, but I'm kind of on the fence here. I think the PIAA, the individual districts and leagues did a really good job this fall, and John and I were out and we were in the middle of it. Phenomenal job. I think they earned the right to start winter sports on time and play with the protocols. Mask, okay, we gotta, no problem. I was at Penn Manor today. The girls were running around with masks on. They weren't complaining. I was at Linden Hall the other day. They had masks on. They weren't complaining. They were happy to be in the gym with their friends playing basketball. So yeah, I think they deserve the shot to start and just keep playing. Okay. Yes. But it is a pandemic. I get it. I can see, these numbers are terrible. I can see why they want to shut it down. And I think the compromise was, okay, let's just push it back. We won't start the league until January 8th, and we'll give everybody an extra week for districts. We had Zach Kraft on yesterday, the LL chairperson, and he said, we're not going to start league play till January 8th, but we were okay with letting teams start December 11th if they wanted to play. So I'm really on the fence, and that's kind of a cop-out, wuss out attitude. I apologize. I see it both ways. I try not to be selfish because this is my livelihood. My life revolves around school calendar, and I spend my life in high school gyms and stadiums. So selfishly, I want them to play, so I have something to do, and I can go to my boss and say, I'm going here, and I'm working. So it pains me a little bit. I don't know what I'm going to do the next 3 weeks without games.
Yeah.
I don't know how we got through the spring and last spring, John. I don't know how we pulled that off, but anyway, I'm really on the fence. I hear ET. I think they probably could have started on December 11th. I feel bad for the kids. Again, here we go. They're kind of getting screwed, but I can see why they're doing it. I'm trying not to sound like a bad guy or pick sides, but we got to get through this pandemic thing here. We got to get needles in our arms and get safe. That's my bottom line.
I'm kind of on the same wavelength with Jeff as far as let them start December 11th, get 2 weeks of games in, and then, okay, maybe let's push pause around Christmas and New Year's, because I think the big worry there, I don't know, at least I'm reading between the lines, is families gathering, and then let's wait 2 weeks so that way everybody can kind of stay home and self-quarantine instead of returning to the court right away, or even the wrestling mat, what have you. And the potential spread there. As far as masks go, the Hempfield girls volleyball team played all fall. They made the decision as teammates to say, hey, we're going to wear masks in practice and during games. And guess what? They won a district championship and they made it to the state semifinals. Now, I know volleyball isn't as, high strung of a sport as far as the pace of the game goes as basketball would be. And I know, it's certainly not as contact like wrestling is, just in terms of you're hitting a volleyball around, you're not really making contact with your teammates or even opposing players. Considering volleyball, one of the safety guidelines was to stay on one side of the court for both teams the entire match. So it's a little bit apples to oranges comparison there. But yeah, my next question now is, okay, if teams have to stay shut down through 8 a.m. on January 4th, how many practices, when they then return, how many practices do we have to have on the books before they can start playing games again? And I think, we'll learn those answers here probably in the next 24 to 48 hours as athletic directors across the state try to figure out, okay, when can we start playing games and figure out their schedules?
Yeah, I know. I don't know if you guys asked Zach, but he'll have to, Coach Kraft will have to do yet another master schedule for the LL. I mean,
It's gonna happen.
I feel bad.
I literally just got done typing in all of the girls' schedules, all 22, every game, every night. I literally just got done typing them all in, and now I'm gonna have to rip it up and start again.
I've done it twice, brother. Hey, let me bring in Coach Goodling, and then what I think what I want to do is just have a round robin, and you guys can ask questions of each other, and people can jump in. Let me get Coach Goodling on a point, and I know nobody's been through this before, Coach, nobody, but I know talking to coaches, and when I was coaching, that if we had a snow and it messed up 2 practices, the coaches were pulling their hair out, and it's like how we practice and how we get good. I mean, from your point of view, how do you think coaches are going to deal with this? We started, we're stopped, and we're started again. I mean, some of them have their teams picked. So from your point of view, how do you think coaches are going to deal with that?
Well, I'll tell you, a lot of coaches, they're all in different situations. You have some schools that have started the very first day and they were going strong, had 2 scrimmages, and they're ready to play their game next weekend. In some cases, I guess Lebanon was going to play this Saturday, right?
Yeah, was going to play at Wilson tomorrow.
Yeah,
or Saturday.
York County, we had a very good team. 2 of the best teams in York County, Central York and York Suburban. They just started like Tuesday and Wednesday practice, first time. They weren't allowed to practice until this week. So they got 1 or 2 practices in and now they shut down. So I think the coaches they just want to know, okay, are we going to really come back on January 4th? And they're going to want to know how many days that we practice do I have before my first game? And it's really uneven because some people already have 3 weeks of practice in. Some people have 2 days in. So it's so uneven. And I think the coaches, they have to not only look at their team, the head coaches, they are worried about their 7th grade team, their 8th grade team. If a coach tests positive, on their ninth grade team. Who am I going to get to coach my ninth grade team when he's out? If my team can continue to practice, there's all kinds of things, more so than the X and O's. So it's a real nightmare.
Yeah.
I agree with John. I think that, I think the reason why they paused this, or at least I would hope the reason why they paused this, is the fact with over the holidays, all the intermingling of the families, it gives, people and teams an opportunity to quarantine on the back end. I couldn't even imagine if teams, if the schedule didn't get completely halted, teams would be continuing to practice during, the holidays, even though they weren't playing games. Most of the tournaments got canceled, but still that intermingling of, all the family members, and try as they may, there's going to be family members that are, going to be different than others, that funky uncle who doesn't want to wear a mask and he's over somewhere, and that ruins a team or multiple teams or coaches. So I like the idea of the suspension. I think that benefits the season in the long run.
And coaches have heard of other teams being quarantined and shut down, and they're just all saying, when's it going to happen to us? Is it going to happen to us? Because it could happen to anybody at any time.
Right.
So this gives everybody a chance to regroup, but they want to know, like, okay, how many practices am I going to have before our first game? Are we going to play an LL's schedule, the whole schedule? Are we going to play the LL tournament, which I don't think anybody's made that announcement yet. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. When I talked to a couple people, and it was funny. The LL powers were waiting for District 3 and the PIAA, so they were kind of waiting to see what happens there. And as of now, they had a week in there that they were going to schedule some games. Now, whether it's going to be the same tournament we were used to or not.
Zach didn't flat out poo-poo it yesterday. I think his words were, I'll monitor it and see where we're at. And if we have a chance to have some type of a bracket, they will.
Right.
And if they try to squeeze it in, the screwy thing is going to be there's 5 sections. So I don't know how they're going to squeeze, 5 section champs into some kind of a bracket without a bye or something. I don't know. And I'll say it again, man. Be happy with any games you get. If they say we're playing 10 games, that's all you get. No playoffs. Be happy, suck it up and play.
And then you'll have the Ohio State thing where one team's getting 5 games in, another team's getting 7,
and Dell, that's where District 3's got to step in too, because I thought that now everybody gets a pass for the fall because nobody, like you said, had ever been through this stuff, and all we did in the springtime was cancel spring sports, which let's be honest, a lot of those are getting rained out anyway because the weather stinks around here. But the problem that I had with the fall was that it's not Harrisburg's fault that they got involved late in the playoff chase.
Oh, true.
It's the fact that they were allowed to get involved, and there wasn't like a hard deadline of you have to determine you're playing by this day or not. And if you come back after that, you have to understand you're not going to be eligible for anything. I mean, there has to be some policing of this stuff on a better level now that we've gone through the fall for the winter time. And I think the district's got to step up and do something about it too. The Mid-Penns isn't. I mean, they haven't done anything except just delay the start of the season and all that. And I'm not going to get into how horrible they were at handling football, but something has to be done. I think on the district level too. They need to get obviously some guidance from the PIAA first, which I hope to get at some point the next 2 days, but once they do that, I think they need to step up and they need to say, here's the deal, X amount of games, not X amount of games. You're playing by this day or you're not playing towards a playoff, something like that. They can't have this situation where a team may go 9-0 and another team may go 17-1 and the 9-0 team gets in there and they've played half as many games. It can't happen for basketball this go.
I think Whippeal announced today that they're having no minimum.
No minimum.
You could play 4 games and make districts.
Yep. And I don't agree with that. I think that's, like Dell just said with the Ohio State thing, it's ridiculous. You can't make the rule. I mean, if you're going to do it, make the rule that, there's no minimum, but then stick with it. And if a team pops in late, they pop in late. That's just the way it goes. But I think there needs to be some definitive by the district that says, you know, either no minimum or there's a hard out day. You're either in or out by this day, and there's no ands ifs after that.
Yeah.
And do the due diligence too. I mean, you know, the one thing that we found in football after the fact, I mean, to your point, everybody was just, it was fantastic. Golly, we were getting a season, but then, like I said, the helter-skelter nation of the regular season. Then when everybody started looking at the playoff structure and how teams were going to have to go across the state and everything else for playoffs, you know, those points need to be raised early on so that there can be some adjustments, not like 1 week during the PIAA tournament, you're trying to figure out whether you're going to re-bracket everybody. That's not the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hey, Coach Goodling, I'm curious as far as your end. Let's say you're a coach right now during this season and you come back and have, you know, X amount of practice days to get ready for a team. But then the way the truncated season is, there's going to be at least 2, if not 3, if not 4 games pretty much every week. How do you even go about preparing your guys for that? Not only that, with them wearing masks and conditioning, like there's a lot of factors that coaches have to take into consideration in this season that we've never faced before.
Well, I talked to a coach the other day that he said, I think the Warwick coach, I think Christensen said the same thing, that his team is now gaining some mass conditioning. They're used to it a little bit. The first week they were not. So that's a big thing. You have to keep your eye on that. Like what, and that might vary from player to player on who can handle that cardiovascular stress compared to normal. And also, I think you probably have to have the right kind of mask. So there's a good mask and a bad mask. So you have to investigate and find out what is the top mask, the most efficient mask for playing basketball. And I think you have to have your whole team in that mask.
I agree. That's right on that, because I've seen all these practices, and probably the other guys out there too have seen, and it's just helter skelter on, you know, one guy's wearing that, you know, that blue mask, and then, you know, the other guys are wearing like the cloth mask. And yeah, you got to
find one that you found that your people feel that that's the best mask, or somebody tells you that's the best one, and then you go with that one, and your whole team has that one. I just think that's what you need to do.
Hey, let me bring in Andy here real quick, because he's sitting there watching. And Andy, I'm gonna allow you to go ahead and ask a question or two, and then I want to do a round robin, just kind of like what we were going, a little free form. And if somebody's got, they can jump in. If somebody's got a question, I know before we were on air that there was a couple guys were gonna, you know, ask each other some questions about how they see things. And then if we have time, we'll talk about the Dukies. If we have time, okay?
Don't go there.
Go ahead, Andy.
No, I'll follow the lead with what everybody else said. I'll kind of give my opinion on where we stand with things. I think whether you start on time or you delay, the bottom line is you have to at least try. That's just my, you have to at least give it a shot, whether that is now, whether that's in January, whatever. I think you have to at least try. I'm a little bit different in the sense that I played in a league at Nook this summer and this fall. And I don't know if that was smart or not, but I did. And I mean, it kind of feels weird, you know, a little bit early on when you walk in and they do the temp guns and everything like that. But from a player perspective, once the game starts, it's muscle memory. It just feels totally normal, which in my case is not worrying about defense and figuring how quick I can get down on offense and get an open three. So, I mean, that never changed, pandemic aside. So I mean, that's good. But I was invited to a fall tournament type showcase here the other week. And I mean, it felt weird. It just did. I mean, whether that's, you know, the being sheltered inside for so long, but it's like, normally you would never think about this stuff, but it's like, you know, there's 8 different populations of people in here. And yes, the place is dripping with hand sanitizer and everything else, but it's like, where were these people at? Who do they interact with? I mean, is it that contagious that I'm going to get it by being in the same thing? So, I mean, for me, that was at least weird, but you know, I don't know. My whole thing, and this might be totally naive on my part, and Dell, I know we've talked about this, and Coach, when we met outside of Nook, actually, I talked about this. I think the unintended peer pressure in this, I don't know if a lot of people are talking about it, and I don't even know if it's real. And what I mean by that is, let's say Jimmy on Warwick wakes up with the sniffles and is like, I don't really feel too hot. He knows he could probably play, but does he really want to go through and be like, I don't feel all that great. I mean, I really don't want to get a test because what if I'm positive? Then what are my teammates going to think of me? Because I just shut us down for, 2 weeks or whatever. So I don't know. Maybe that's just me being me, but I think that's another part of this conversation that, you're going to put a lot of ownership on the kids. And, I don't know. That's just something that I thought where, yes, you can play, but I think that's going to be another, I don't know, consequence of that or whatever, but who knows, maybe I'm way off base and I'm looking into things up there, but that was just my opinion where, I don't want to be the one to shut us down. That's, and I think that's a real thing. So I don't know.
No, I think that's a good point.
I was concerned about that in the fall, and I thought for sure we'd have maybe a week or two of football games, and then by week 3 or 4, everybody would shut down, and then it didn't happen until like week 8 or 9. So I don't know. I had that concern too starting the fall, but now I'm like, kids are wearing masks and schools are taking proper sanitary measures. And it doesn't sound like there's going to be that many off the court team gatherings for team bonding and such, at least as much as there was in years prior, at least as much as there normally is. So while that's a concern, I don't know how much that plays into a factor. I think it's more so the fact that schools go to remote learning. If 4 kids in the high school get sick, they may not even play sports, but that school might go to remote learning. And then what does that do to sports? I've always wondered, and I've never brought this up publicly, but like if a team were to come out and say, hey, all of our student athletes on this team, we're going to do remote learning for this entire season. We're not going to go into the school. Can they still play regardless of whatever is happening over with the school? I know the Manheim
State College did it. Yeah, State College did it for football. So
Reading out.
And and the Manheim Township boys soccer team was doing it at the start of the playoffs, and then Township basically closed, and they said, hey, you can't play soccer anymore, even though the boys soccer team's players were doing remote learning. So I don't know. I've always thought that maybe that's a way around it, but I guess not.
This is probably going to be the people are going to say that I favor the athletic stuff too much, and yeah, sure I do, but John, you're right about something. I think that more schools need to be proactive with it. Central York did it with their football team in the playoffs. They kept them all home and said, everybody stay virtual for the rest of the playoffs. They had cases pop up in the school. They shut down, I think, a week before their semifinal game, and the team was able to play on. St. Joe's Prep, same thing. They couldn't even practice on their home site for the state final. So I really, these kids, these athletes in the fall especially, did more to keep themselves safe and healthy than anybody else in that school did. At every school, we can. It sounds bad when you put it that way, but if you really think about it, they had to figure out different ways to work out. They had to have less interaction. They couldn't get around their teammates. They had to stay 100% healthy just to have maybe 3 or 4 games during a football season. I'm sorry. I think schools do need to cater to them. I think they need to tell them stay home or stay virtual for, even if it's for chunks of the season or the whole thing, or maybe when the playoffs are around or something. But I think they do need to favor something like that at these schools.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I just hope that throughout this entire process that we have a meaningful season, that, without, basketball is so accustomed to not only having county and then district championships and then PIAA and a number of teams that have opportunity, to get there. I just hope that we have a meaningful season, that there are enough teams that have an ability to, make it to the postseason, that, people just won't, dial it in. And that would be my fear. And just like we talked about the fact that those football games were scheduled, after the district playoffs started, what'd we play? 1 or 2 of them? Everybody just gave up on it. And I just hope that doesn't happen to the basketball season.
Well,
Guys, for what it's worth, I just wanted to chime in on this quick because I mentioned this earlier. What happens when teams return to practice starting January 4th? I put that out to Mike Gross because I was off work technically today, and he's been handling a lot of things. And he said the Warwick Athletic Director Ryan Landis said that he's operating under the assumption that for the 15 total practice thing, that will stand in terms of like the number of practices that teams have in right now will also count towards when they start back up in January. In which case teams like an Octorara or Lancaster Country Day that have not started practice yet, that's definitely going to impact them because Octorara, their school board on Monday said, hey, we don't want sports games at least starting until the beginning of January. And they just started practice on Tuesday. So they got 3 practices in so far. So who knows, how much longer until they can start playing games and once they pick back up in January. Sorry, that was my other thing I wanted to mention.
Oh no, that's good stuff because, like I said, Zach's going to have to come up with another schedule, push everything back because you can't have half of the teams playing and not have half the teams playing, and then you're going to get to the situation where John said about 3 games in a week, or you're going to have 4 games in a week if you're going to get a whole 17 game, or well, it won't be 17 now, it'll be 14. Let's say it's going to be a 14 game schedule, and that's it. Go back to Bruce's point. I mean, I don't know much about football, but I would love to see Bishop McDevitt in the playoffs. You know what I'm saying? And I'm hoping that we have an issue where we see Reading High and Wilson and Harrisburg and whoever qualifies. We want to see those teams play at that point. Now it is going to be interesting if this season goes forward with the district championship. So let's talk about that. Like one team representing District 3, representing District 1. I know Eric has some opinions on that. Go ahead, Eric.
I've long said that I think the state tournament needs to be 16 teams max. You can take the district champs and you can take a runner-up from the biggest district. So if District 11, 3, 7, and 1 are the 4 biggest, you take the runner-up from there. It's as simple as that. We don't need 32 teams. We don't need a Class 5A district bracket around here where all you literally have to do is qualify and then you have a shot to make states, even if you lose a game or lose 2 games. I think it's too watered down. I understand that basketball is the sport where if you get hot, a team goes on a run, they can do damage. But I think it puts more emphasis on a season to qualify for districts, and then it puts more emphasis on the district tournament if it's single elimination. I think it's going to be a better postseason if we get to it this year than we've had around here in a long time.
Yeah, as somebody who did girls basketball state rankings for 4 years and got to know everybody from Scranton to Erie and all points in between, way too many teams make states. Yep. We don't need District 11 8th place against District 6 9th place. You don't. Sorry. I'm sorry you got in at 12 and 10 and made a run.
And I've never done a story on this, but and maybe that behooves me to do one in the near future. But I wonder if a part of that expansion and classification has to do with dollars and cents in terms of PIAA has to be able to pay their bills, and perhaps that played into the fact as far as expanding and doing more games and trying to bring in more money, especially now that there's less and less fans at games in these last couple of years, and there's not going to be barely any fans at the games this year. Hey, another thing that we have to tackle kind of coming up. Once we get to the playoffs, since we're talking about that, and I hate to bring up masks again, but the District 3 board meeting is coming up this Wednesday, and I'm curious if anything's going to come out of that as far as requiring all District 3 student athletes to be wearing face coverings at all times, because let's say LL League schools who are requiring their players to wear face coverings at all times and requiring their opponents to do so when they play in their home gym. What happens when we get to the playoffs and they face a team from outside of their own league that hasn't been wearing masks all season? And then what do we do? And I wonder if that's something that should be on the table for discussion when it comes to districts and states.
It's got to be.
It has to be. Absolutely.
I can speak from a school board perspective, at least of what's happening a little bit with wrestling. Is we had a school in ELL that said that they were not going to wear masks, and basically our superintendent just said we're not playing that team. I mean, that was it. So, I'm hoping, like John, I'm hoping that it's going to be, that everybody's going to do this, and that's the way it's going to be. I think with Ron Kennedy, at least in the District 3 and the LL level, that's going to be the way it's going to, I think. Now, I think the PIAA is such a big conglomerate, and I think different we saw that this week. There's different viewpoints all the state, but they gotta come together. I was interested in, and Jeff, you've watched a couple practices. What happens when a kid's mask falls off if they have a scrum for a jump ball? John followed up with
Brian Wiggins
on this, and he said that they weren't going to stop except for a dead ball. But I can see a situation where kids going up for rebound, mask gets ripped off,
over the eyes.
Kids are like running. It's like, and then you got a mask sitting there.
It's going to happen. It's absolutely going to happen.
It is going to happen. We haven't had any games to really test it yet.
Well, Jeff's watched some practices, so I was kind of curious what he's seeing in practice.
I've seen a lot of masks down over the chin.
Yep.
Sadly.
And under the nose and below the chin. Long as I think the rule is as long as they have it on, necessarily that not as, they're getting by without having it over the nose and the mouth as long as they've got it on.
Yeah,
I think that's the rule.
Two quick notables. Linden Hall, they ordered these little cups. They're little plastic cups, and they have like holes in them so you can breathe. And the cup fits in a mask, and it goes, here, and then it makes your mask tighter and stay on your face. Secondly, when I was at Penn Manor today, they said they ordered special masks. So I don't know what those are. It probably says Comets on it.
Well, hey, I know they weren't LLhoops masks because I didn't
probably not
from
but,
Penn Manor.
They weren't
there's
these.
an athletic mask apparently that you can order now that are tighter and will stick.
Well,
Are they going to come off? Yes, they're going to come off. They're going to come off.
I saw that plastic thing you were talking about, Jeff. Bob Birmingham over at Brooks Catholic had it, and I said, hey, what is that thing? And he showed me what it was, and he said it works great, except it actually is hotter. Because it's plastic on there. It's great. You can breathe better, but you're going to sweat more. So I don't know what's worse.
No, really. Yeah, I saw that at Linden Hall, and the coach vouched for it. She said we're using it, and we'll see what these Penn Manor masks are.
Yeah.
Who knows? You got to do it. You just got to suck it up and do it. I'm trying not to make any of this political because I am not political at all.
Let me go to Andy. I know he's muted on me right now, but Andy, I know you got some no video or audio now, but there he is. Hey, I know you get around and you've been to some gyms and stuff like that. Have you personally had a workout with a mask on? Or maybe I'll throw it to Coach Goodling because he seems like the only guy on this thing besides Andy that works out constantly.
I haven't. I talking to a couple of coaches about this when kind of before anybody could start practice, and everybody was like, well, this mask thing, I don't know how this is going to work, this isn't too great. And I'm like, well, the kids are going to get through it. It's the adults who aren't going to be the ones to take it on. I mean, if you had 15 practices and you had to practice for 15 times with a mask on, the kids won't like it, but they'll be used to it. I mean, I haven't personally done anything, so yeah, coach might know if he's worked out with a mask, but I don't know if there's a there. I mean, I guess there could be, but I don't know. I mean, to Jeff's point, you kind of got to suck it up, and them's the rules. If you want to play, that's what you got to do. So
and they're resilient. They're resilient. John will vouch for this. We talked to so many ADs this fall, and every one of them looked right at us and said, these kids are resilient and they'll do anything.
Yep.
They'll sanitize, whatever.
The first day or two of practice, coaches that I talked to saying they were all talking about, the mask, we're falling all the mask. Now, as we get into week 3, some of the coaches I talked to, they don't even mention the mask anymore.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? Like the first day or two of practice, it was a big problem.
Sure.
Okay. Now that they've had them on a little bit, they don't really mention them as much. They're just sort of part of it.
Hey, I got a question for Eric. Speaking of masks, so let's say, Eric, that LLhoops is going to do some live stream games this year. I got a couple of schools giving us some permission to get in there. So I'm looking at you and I'm looking at Coach Goodling, and I'm thinking like, okay, how are those guys going to do a mask? Because they're not going to let us in that gym without a mask. So you guys have a mask that you're happy with, you can talk to.
So what we did during football season was we wore them inside Landis Field for Central Dauphin during our football broadcast. Now, for the state finals, my partner and I were separated by a little bit more than 6 feet in our booth, and we had some equipment in between us. Not, we've been around each other all season anyway, so we weren't too concerned. But and the couple games that I worked with Bruce in the semifinal round, we didn't wear them in the booth either when we were doing the game. Now, if you walked outside the press box or whatever, yeah, of course you're going to put it on. You got to respect the school and the rules and things like that if you want to be in there to do it. I have zero issue wearing one. I mean, I got to wear one 3 days a week when I work out too. I mean, it is what it is, but there's different ways around it. I mean, I'm more of a gator guy because they're a lot more comfortable. Jeff, you were talking about some of these masks that these schools are making. Mission makes a really good adjustable one that's breathable. So I mean, there's definitely options out there for them, but to make it easier on the players, and ones that double loop around your ears and things too. So there's going to be some options for stuff. But I mean, listen, if you got to do it, you got to do it. It's just the way it is. It's all about making sure that it sounds okay. And for the most part, the paper ones sound good if you're broadcasting. I don't know so much that the Under Armour style would sound good if you're calling a game. You got a gator on. Gators are the easiest thing to talk through. But yeah, if they say you got to wear it, I have zero issue with it.
Like I said earlier, this is my livelihood.
Yeah.
If they say, Reinhart, you have to wear a mask to come into my stadium to sit in my press box to cover this game, I put a mask on.
Yeah, exactly. And Jeff, I'm with you too on something you said earlier. I mean, you said that you hate to make it like about your job and stuff like that. We all, on some level, are tied to this financially. Either you're a reporter at a paper and you're getting a salary for doing the work. Either you're a broadcaster like me and you're getting paid by a game to do it, or like for football season, I'm in charge of getting advertising. I got to go door to door and get these things from these people too. We all have some kind of financial interest in it, and I think too many people have said, well, I know I heard it during football season. Well, you're just interested in it because you get paid. Well, okay, that's part of it, but I'm interested in it because it's something I've done for 20 years, and it's something that's like my second job too. And I actually, put the effort into it. I don't just show up like some guys do and think you can make it sound okay. I mean, it's an actual job that we're doing. And if you think about it more so than ever this year, anybody who's in any facet of media, whether it be print or broadcast, if you're bringing this coverage to these people, they need it more than ever anyway. So they should be even more grateful that we're able to work around it, and be more thankful that these schools are letting us work around it. Hey, if we got to go to Geigel this year, I don't know if we're even going to be able to get in there. So there's still schools that are, that are adamant about not having people there. But if you can bring them the coverage this year, everybody should just be grateful that we're all kind of working together to do this the right way.
Yeah, thankfully, I get more thank you notes than you suck notes.
Well, hey,
yeah, that's because you're not calling the game. That's why.
I know what you mean.
From reading your Twitter handle, you're knocking everybody out. That's all I get. It's like, don't bash the coaches.
Yeah, Jeff, you just block everybody, so that's why you don't hear it.
Yeah.
Masks aren't good if you wear glasses. That's the only thing that I got to say about that. Whether you're indoors or outdoors, the mask. I mean, suppose I tried like on these wipes that supposedly like you can put on the glass and they won't fog. Don't buy those. They don't work. But it's the fogging of the glasses, and then you can breathe and you can talk, but you can't see. And if you can't see your notes, how are you supposed to broadcast?
Yeah. And since Jeff and Eric kind of hit on it, I haven't spoken publicly about this, but like, sports, this used to be like our little corner, guys. Like we could play sports and everybody else could kind of just leave us alone. And now it's like everything, news and politics and pandemic and sports, it's all intermixed. And at some days it just drives me nuts. And some days I look forward to, I can't wait until we can just kind of go back to just having our thing and everybody letting us alone.
Yeah, it's like George Costanza said, worlds are colliding.
Exactly.
There's no doubt. Hey, Eric and Warren and Andy.
There it is.
Oh, there it is.
You know what we're going to do? This is going to be Player of the Game awards this year. Not T-shirt. We're going to give this to one of the players.
I like it.
And we're going to have a boom camera with a microphone, and they can be 6 feet away from you, and the kid will have this on, and we'll get some sponsorship, and we'll be all happy. Now, I do want to go back to what Eric said real quick. I mean, the newspaper guys, you guys felt a pinch. I guess it was about last year or 2 years ago. I mean, there's been a lot of people laid off in the print media. I know whatever as Eric was saying, whatever anybody does, it costs money. I mean, I run a little website, but I'm telling you, it's insane the amount of things that you have to do, safety precautions, servers, and Bruce can speak to this. You know, you get equipment, you know, you have a lot of stuff going on. And if John Walk and Jeff Reinhart, if they're not getting people to come into their site, they're on the unemployment line too. I mean, that's just the way it is. And I know I want to go back to Jeff and John because when I first started 21 years ago, there was quite a conflict between me and some of the print media. And I don't feel that way now. I feel like there's more of a camaraderie here as far as sharing some information, seeing guys, you know, it's like, hey, John, what game are you going to? We'll go to someplace else. So we have some coverage. But I know, let's go back to Jeff and John. You guys have done more with the video recently. And is that because the world's changing, or is that because your bosses say, hey, we got to get some video going in here?
I've been doing the online thing since we launched Lancaster Online in like 2009. I mean, do you guys remember Lank Sports?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that was me and Keith Schweigert. Yeah, I think I kind of learned early on that that's where it was going. It's just not you know, typing 1,000 words anymore and hoping people pick up the paper in the morning. And it's at your fingertips. You know, we're all walking around with these all the time. So I kind of figured out early on that, hey, I'm going to take this video, even if it's 10 seconds, and get it out there. And hey, here's a kid making a buzzer beater at the third quarter and the crowd goes wild. And it just kind of caught on, and people want to watch that stuff. Sometimes people would rather watch a 30-second video instead of reading a 15-inch story. That's the world we're in. And I think everywhere that I've been kind of since 2010, editors or whoever have come to me and said, hey, these little videos here, this is good stuff. We need to do more of these things. And the last couple of years, they've actually let John and I in studios to do shows and look into cameras and, you know, do programming. And it's pretty good. Right, John? I think
yeah, I think like anybody in any industry, this pandemic has kind of pushed us to trying things that we may not have otherwise. And perhaps now like, oh, we should have been doing this, you know, X amount of years or months ago. And for us, yeah, we would have done the video regardless. We have fancy new studio built at our old place and now at our new place that we're looking forward to getting into. But I think the difference in video and that the last few years, at least, I've been with LNP since the start of 2015. We would do a weekly show, but it would have to be like 10 or 15 minutes or less. That they were always trying to aim, keep it short, keep it sweet, so people would pay attention. Whereas our roundtable, it's, hey, we're going to broadcast this live to Facebook, whoever's watching a watch. And that's actually really taken off. For our football, we averaged anywhere from 2,000 to 4,000 viewers or views throughout the week. The basketball show, as soon as that wrapped last night on our Facebook page, we had 1,100 views within the first hour. So I think that's kind of the one change there.
Nice. How about, you know, we're talking short, and we're up to an hour and 15 minutes right now just for 4 or 5 guys here. Talking some hoops. So I'll throw it open. Let's start with Jeff. Jeff, you got any questions of any of our panelists?
I'd like to hear who everybody likes this year. Let's talk some basketball.
We'll get to you in a minute. Jeff's first, and we'll come back to your question.
I would like Eric Thomas to give us his best Jim Cantafio impersonation.
Jeff, let me tell you something right now, okay? Chad Henne's the best quarterback I've ever seen. It's as simple as that, okay? Been a while since I had to pull that out, actually.
That's pretty good. That's
Well done. Who do I like in basketball?
Yeah.
You're starting it off with me. Why cover the girls?
Yeah. Well, I kind of cover both, so that's good.
Lancaster Catholic will be fine. You know, they lost some firepower. Naomi Zaletta will be a kid you'll want to watch. Mary Bolesky is a freshman for Catholic. Remember her name. Catholic will find a way. They always do. I think they win the league. And then we were talking about districts and only one team getting through. Lancaster Catholic girls are 4A, and you know who else is 4A? Delone Catholic, and they're loaded.
Really?
You could be looking at Delone and Lancaster Catholic playing in a district final to go to states.
Wow.
So one thing, while I have the floor, if I may, here's my prediction. Now, I don't know what Zach's going to do. I don't know what Kennedy's going to do. But this is my prediction as of 8:44 p.m. on Thursday night. I have a gut feeling that the LL is going to recommend that you bag all of your non-league games, cancel them, just don't play them, and play your 13 league games. And that's what we're going to do this year. They're going to recommend that. So if Donegal wants to play E-Town on a Thursday night, okay, maybe we'll let them. But I think they're going to recommend, look, too dangerous. PIAA is already pushing us back. Play your 13. Be happy you're getting 13. We'll give you an LL playoff bracket and go from there. That's my guess.
Okay.
I hope I'm wrong.
All right, good.
I love a good non-league game on a Thursday night, better than Andy probably.
Yep.
But I that's my gut hunch. I'm going to say they're just going to play league games and move on.
All right.
Next.
Who's next?
Go ahead, Andy.
You got Andy in?
Yeah.
So who do I like?
Yeah.
Preview show. Everybody's playing for second place this year. It's Warwick's show. It's Warwick's show to lose. I mean, there's too many pieces. I said this on our show. I don't know if they're going to go undefeated. I'm not saying they're, head and shoulders above everybody in that way. But I think if you put them in a 7-game series against everybody else, I don't think they lose any one of them. This is their time this year, if they have time. Yeah, I mean, it's Warwick for me, head and shoulders above the rest. And this whole caveat with the district champs going to states, that I don't know what that means for us. I don't know.
They're 5A, right? In basketball, 5A?
Warwick's 6.
6. They're 6.
Come on. They're beating Reading High.
And that's what I'm saying. They're like 1 or 2 kids in that threshold. So they can't find 1 or 2 kids to move away so they can get into 5A. So I don't know if we're going to be playing in the state tournament with the, district champ qualifications. I have no idea, but within league, it's Warwick and everybody else, in my opinion. And the other thing I wanted to say too, we were talking about the LNP boys there with that. Jeff, I think I told you this before, and if I didn't, I apologize. But your site with Keith that you're talking about, that Lang Sports thing, that was so far ahead of its time.
Yeah.
It's not even funny. And I say that because it came around at the perfect time for me, where I graduated the year before, went 1,000 miles away to school. So my friends were still playing and I could find everything I wanted to. I mean, you guys had headshots, for God's sakes, and some sort of algorithm where, every box score was linked to their personal page. And, my best friend was averaging 3 points.
Remember? We had the ticker going across the top, breaking news. Yeah, that was ahead of its time. That was a labor of love. And we were very honored to, when they called us in, we were like, oh my God, why are we being called into the editor's office? And they said, hey, Lang Sports, here, go, do it.
No, and even now, 10, 15 years later, there's nothing that competes to it. And it's now an obsolete product, I guess. So
pretty much. I mean, we try on the platform that we have now, but it doesn't have the same gadgets like that did. So
I think the new craze is newsletters, right, Jeff?
Yeah, they like the newsletters. And apparently the football newsletter went over spectacularly. So, yeah.
Wow.
Quiet bunch. Is that it?
Well, I don't really have any more to add to what Andy said. I mean, I think we all like Warwick because Jeff asked me at the end of our show last night who's going to be the last team left standing in boys out of the LL League, and I said Warwick, but then I just realized, oh yeah, they are in 6A. So thanks for pointing that out. So maybe the last team left standing is like Lancaster Catholic boys, like they are all year, just because they end up always making a deep playoff run. Who knows what playoffs will look like come February. But yeah, I'm on the same page as everybody else here. We all know Warwick is loaded, and curious what we see out of Section 1. I think that's pretty much anybody's for the taking at this point. Section 2, Warwick is there. Section 3, LS apparently has this point guard that's been playing at IMG Academy the last many years, and Tyler Barton. So keep an eye on that guy. And Manheim Central Cocalico should be right there, because Central brings back everybody from last year's team pretty much, because they started freshmen and sophomores. Trey Group at Central, one of the top 3-point shooters in the league. Section 4, Catholic is right there. Keep an eye on Octorera. Elko has one starter back, but he's probably the best player in the league in Braden Bohannon. And Section 5, Columbia and Lancaster Mennonite are basically going to duke it out there, but don't sleep on Pequay Valley as well. So that's my quick take there.
Hey, Warren,
Yeah.
You're old school, man. You are LL League, 3 sections. When's
Yeah.
the McCaskey game guy?
Yeah.
What do you think of this 5 section stuff? And I don't cover you, anymore like I used to, but they realign again next year. Are you in Zach's ear for 5 sections again? Or are you cool?
I haven't talked to Zach, but no, I like the 3 sections.
Yeah.
I've always liked that. The 4 wasn't bad. The 5, I couldn't believe they went to 5, but I really enjoyed the 3. I really did. I thought the 3 was awesome.
Even when people complained about the playoff spots?
Well, when it went 3-3-2, right?
Yes. Yes.
I didn't see it. Well, I was in section 1, so of course I don't see a problem with that. But
No, you don't.
because I said one time in a coaches meeting, I said, all right, you section 3 coaches, if you want 3 spots, I'll tell you what we do. Let's all play each other one time. We'll have a total of 23 games, and the top 8 teams make the playoffs.
Yeah. Yeah.
I said that, and I don't think people liked it, but
And hey, I think a part of that is going to the 5 sections was kind of a result of PIAA going from 4 classifications to 6, because then you had 3 sections where one section would have like a 4A, 5A, and 6A schools, so that just didn't work.
Yeah, I get it. Times change. I get that, but I feel bad for like to me, I look at like Warwick, to me, is a section 1 team. And it's like, it's just great having them and Lebanon and CV. They're like section 1 teams. So I look at them as section 1 teams.
I like the way you think, man. That's old
Yeah,
school. My mind still thinks of those teams as section 1 teams all these years later.
Yeah.
Especially in football. It should be 3 sections. I'm old school.
Yeah, Berks League went to 4 sections this year, and don't ask me why, but Berks Catholic moved up and Muhlenberg moved down, and Muhlenberg moved up then to 6A. I think the district is just 6A heavy. All the good teams I think are, in 6A this year. Reading High's tough. Muhlenberg's going to be, good again. There's the 5A champ now up in 6A this year. On the girls' side, probably the teams that are going to make a district run. And I think for many years now, one of the teams in girls you're going to be looking at in the district is Fleetwood because of Alexis Hess. She's just a dynamite player. She might be the best basketball player that could ever come out of District 3. I know that's saying a lot, but this girl is really something. And so that's, I think, from a girl's perspective, the player that you want to keep your eye on this year in District 3 is Alexis Hess out of Fleetwood.
So
Think about,
I got one.
Bruce just brought this up with the Muhlenberg thing. Think about this for the 6A tournament. 1 team of Muhlenberg, Reading, Wilson, Warwick, Cumberland Valley, and Central Dauphin, and we'll throw Central York in there too. 1 of those teams has to win it.
Yep.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's all 6A heavy this year in the district, and that maybe McDevitt might do something, I think, in the lower classifications. But yeah, I think our claim to fame in District 3 this year is going to be how far our 6A champion's going to go.
Hey, Dell.
Yes, sir.
So they draw up a district bracket this year.
Yep.
Knowing that only 1 team is going to go to states.
Yep.
Do they play the consolation rounds?
Oh, no way.
No, I don't think so. No.
I was curious about that. Do they play the 5th place game? Do they play the
No.
7th place game?
Because
Probably just adopt WPIL the way they do it, where the runner-up is the runner-up, but then like 3rd place is whoever lost the 1st place. And
Whitfield needs to have a
whatever.
playback round.
I agree.
I'll tell you what, Coach Goodling will remember this. Back in the days when we had 4 teams go to the states, you didn't play any of those consolation games. It was like if you lost to the team, if you were in the semis and you lost to the team that won it, you were ranked 3rd. And if you lost to the team that didn't win it, you were ranked 4th. They didn't have a lot of those playoff games, but they didn't have. We didn't play games on home teams' courts either.
Now you played neutral sites. I was just talking about everything was neutral site.
Yeah, everything was neutral.
Every game.
Yeah.
Love the neutral sites. Love the neutral sites.
To me, that was part of the playoff experience. Gone to a neutral site to play a playoff game.
Warren's so old school, dude. You're the
I am.
best.
I always liked it how they
I miss covering Warren.
I would like, having a neutral site, but bring everybody in one location.
Well,
You
yeah.
know,
I
rather
did
than
that for the LL playoffs when I was in the coaches association. We voted one time and was like 23-0 that we wanted to start the LL boys tournament on Saturday at Manheim Township and have 4 games all throughout the day.
Yeah,
And
that's how you
that
do
way-
it.
Yeah, and all the coaches wanted it, and then we had the semifinals there Tuesday, and then we'd have the finals there Friday. That way, nobody could say, "Oh, Township's playing in the championship game on their home court." It wouldn't have mattered because everybody played their 2 previous games. But we couldn't get it out. The association, our coaches association, wanted that, but we couldn't get it through the league. They didn't want it. They didn't want any parts of that.
Yeah, and that's a great kind of format for a larger stadium, whatever like that. You know where it all is, and I'm just shocked that that's never even talked about. This is the first time I heard that it was even brought up, because that's how they do it in Indiana.
Yeah, and
that's the best way to do it.
Basketball junkies, think about what a day they would have. They'd be there all day.
Yeah.
Games.
We would be there. We would be there.
Yeah.
We would be there.
Hey,
Right.
Eric, I covered Mid-Penn full time for 3 years. I think people know that now. But in your, I mean, you're a Mid-Penn guy. That's where you're based, and you cover Mid-Penn more than all of us. Why are playoffs not a big deal to those folks? That bugged me. In my 3 years there, I talk to Wolf and Gambalungi and just say, why don't you guys have playoffs, man? You need a week of playoffs in Mid-Penn. They'd rather take the week off to prepare for a district game. I don't know, but speak to why Mid-Penn doesn't care about playoffs. Because in LL, that week of LL playoffs, like Warren said, is the best. It's awesome. It's the best. It's the best.
Full disclosure, the first time I ever got exposed to that LL tournament was doing radio for WLBR and then doing the final with Dell a couple of years ago, and that was Warwick and Manheim, and I've never seen an environment like that
Incredible.
for a league championship game ever. I mean, at any sport. So that was the absolute best. But it's thrown together. There's no thought behind it whatsoever. It's take 4 division champs, and nobody cares. I mean, it really, last year had a little bit of juice with CD and McDevitt because we don't get that in football anymore. But and Central Dauphin and Trinity and girls was good too. But if you get the powerhouses in there, it's okay. State College Trinity a couple of years ago was a good boys game, but the fact that they don't do anything other than top 4 and division winners, so there's really nothing behind. There's no 8 seed. You can't really like juice anything with like a play-in round or whatever. If they would expand it, I think it might draw more. But unless you get the final of like a powerhouse, nobody's going to care about it. There's no history there. There's no tradition there. It's going to take forever to build it like LL has. And unless they started it back when LL did and when York did and when Berks did, it's not going to fly. It would take 20 years to get to that level, and people don't have the patience to build it like that over a 20-year period. They need to add an extra round. They need to add 4 more teams and add an extra round and have 8 teams.
And then I'd always hear, oh, well, we'd have to play Cumberland Valley in the first round, and we would rather just have the week off. Really?
So what?
Let your
Yeah,
kids
so
play.
what?
Play
Exactly.
a game. So what? Go play Cumberland Valley on a neutral court. Why not? All right, you lose by 30.
You like David versus Goliath. That's what the Indiana basketball was all about.
Go play.
I mean, there have been mismatches. Don't get me wrong, but when you can get, I would argue last year that nobody benefited more from that than a Central Dauphin who beat McDevitt, smashed McDevitt in that boys final. And then they got to districts. They qualified for states. They won 2 nail biters to get into states. They damn near beat the best team in the state of Pennsylvania in 6A last year in the first round of states, Butler. So you can capitalize on it, but they need to do a better job of making it an event. And I think that they also need to, it'll never happen, but they also need to get the farm show back involved and kind of tap into that tradition a little bit. It'll never happen though.
It's too bad. I can't.
Hey, I wanted to kind of steal some of Jeff's question there. Mid-Penn guy, and since we've kind of brought you over, and I've said this before, I mean, I love the league. There's no secret to that, but top to bottom, it'll never, ever compete with the Mid-Penn. It just won't, and I'm realistic about that. But what, being a mid-Penn guy, what's kind of your thought on the league, and what's kind of the thought over in mid-Penn country? Is it kind of still the redheaded stepchild off to the east and they're the cute little story, or what's kind of the prevailing thought on the Lancaster 11 league in mid-Penn area?
I think that I think coaches realize that the gap has narrowed a lot between everybody, to be honest. I mean, look, the best player in the district is probably at Wilson. I mean, that's there. I don't think we can argue that, at least at 6A. I think that there's a clear favorite. Like if we're talking 6A, there's a clear favorite this year in CD. I don't think there's any question, especially if this Malachi Palmer kid is as good as advertised, and he, by all accounts, looks like he is. So they bring everybody back. I think that it depends on what team gets to a certain level. If Harrisburg gets to a certain level and they are the team that everybody guns for, I think there's a perception that they are just ultimately better than anybody else that they could play. And, you know, this year that might not be true because they don't have as much talent as a Central Dauphin or a Wilson or a Reading. I think that if the team that ascends is like a Chambersburg, who's kind of like dabbled in that a little bit and then sort of been disappointing when states roll around, I don't think there's the perception that they're better than anybody else. So I think it really just, the idea that everybody else is like the stepchild, so to speak, only is there if it's the Harrisburg or the traditional power. And let's be honest, we only have one traditional power in the big school, and that's Harrisburg. Nobody else has a history like they do outside of Carlisle. And Carlisle hasn't really done anything in the last 20 years anyway, except for a cup of coffee, you know, in the districts here and there. So Carlisle relies a lot on their history. Harrisburg relies on the constant tradition of putting the winner out. That's the biggest difference between those two. But yeah, it really just depends on who it is. Hey, last year, Central Dauphin knew that they were going to have a lot of problems with Manheim Township. And the thing that Coach Fletcher kept talking about was the year before when they had to play Manheim that year, and we all know who was on that Manheim team that season. I mean, one of my favorite players of all time. But they kept going back to that, saying we couldn't beat this team last year. They were too tough. We might run into the same thing this year. And sure enough, for that game, what happened? They blew a 20-point lead in the first half. So I mean, there really is just no intimidation factor with anybody outside of a Harrisburg team that gets hot at the right time.
How about your Central Dauphin girls too? I mean, they subbed their toe in the first round last year. How are they looking this year?
Pretty much everybody back. Caroline Shire's back. Maddie LaFrance is back. Dickerson, the point guard, is back. Marley Dickerson. They have to find a couple of pieces. Izzy Vogel is still there. They have to find a couple of pieces to give them some depth. I think that they're pretty pumped about it. I think everybody just assumes it's going to be them in Cumberland Valley for the district title. Right. You know, and maybe it is. I don't know, but
CD girls got to transfer. CD girls got to transfer, by the way.
Well, there you go. So if the transfer is anything as good as this kid that came in here named Malachi Palmer, then maybe the girls team will be okay.
I don't think she's that kind of that level.
And that's the other thing too. You're talking about, Andy, you're talking about like schools that McCaskey knows how to handle the big name player. Wilson knows how to handle the big name player. Reading knows how to handle the big name player. You're putting a kid who everybody says is going to be one of the top freshmen in the country on a basketball program that has absolute jack squat for history. How are they going to handle that? I don't know how they're going to handle that. I mean, so it's there is the mid-Penn, as far as it goes, like outside of Harrisburg and outside of like Steel High and outside of old school Carlisle, it's a myth if you ask me.
Hey, there's a certain school that offered Malachi, so I'd like for him to kind of live up to the billing if that's going to come.
Enjoy him for at least 2 years, because after that, I don't think you're going to get him anymore around here.
They'll be gone. Hey, we're going on an hour and a half here, and I know all of us can talk forever. Nobody's going to watch it after the first 15 minutes, but here's how we're going to wrap it up. I'm going to go right down the line. I'm going to say yes or no, and maybe a sentence. Are we going to have PIAA championship this year? And are we going to have semblance of an NCAA championship? We'll start with Jeff.
I don't know anything about NCAA basketball anymore, so I'll go ahead and say yes. PIAA, yes, but it's going to look different. I think they're just going to go district champs as they want to do.
You think we'll get it
Yeah.
in then?
I think we'll get to the finish line in basketball, but it's going to look really different.
Okay.
To the folks out there, be patient and be happy for what you get.
All right, Bruce Badgley.
On the NCAA side, I don't see any way in the world that it's going to happen.
Okay.
I don't think that that they will get enough games in to even make it. On the PIAA side, I'm thinking positive because I think that the truncated season and the reduced number of teams and rounds, I think we're going to get to the finish line.
All right, good. John?
I'm going to say yes on the NCAA because there's too much money involved. I know last year was kind of a fluky thing, and we've seen it with football. They're plowing right through. They'll find a way to get it done in basketball. For high school, I'm going to say yes. Now that we have this shutdown in place, not that I'm saying I'm in favor or against it, but I think this is Wolf's kind of, I don't know, consolation to saying, hey, you can have winter sports, but you're not going to start until January. It's going to look a lot different, but we'll have it.
Okay. Eric?
Yeah, I think, Dell, I definitely think we're going to get an NCAA tournament this year. I think they'll bubble it up. They'll put it in one city for the whole thing, like Indianapolis. Kentucky will not win it because they're terrible. Duke will not win it because they're terrible. It's going to be some dumb team like Iowa because why not? It's going to be
Gonzaga.
Penn State.
I don't think so. Yeah, it'll be somebody ridiculous that we don't expect that wins it, like UNC or Iowa, somebody ridiculous like that. But yeah, I think they'll do it, but it'll be in one city. And I do think that there will be a PIAA tournament, but I will definitely say that it's going to happen in April. I think the championship will be crowned in April.
Do you think the NCAA will be cut back?
I don't think they'll cut it back because, like John said, too much money. We're all going to watch it because we're not going to be able to go to it. I think even though that there's been these weird like restrictions and like maybe they go to, I thought the NBA bubble was awesome. I know Jeff hates the NBA, but I thought it was awesome. For whatever reason, it worked. It was cool. I thought the arena was cool. I thought the virtual fans like worked there. I had a blast watching that, but I don't think they'll cut it back. There's no way they'll cut it back. They may move those games out of Dayton and they may put them in Indianapolis instead just to keep everybody together. But I don't think there's a chance they cut it, and I don't think there's a chance that it doesn't happen.
I only have one thing to interject here real quick. Okay. With the reduced attendance that we're going to see in the PIAA, are we back at the Giant Center? I don't think so.
Where do they go though? The contract's already there. The Bears probably are not going to play. And if they do, it's going to be a late start. I don't think minor league hockey is going to get on the ice until January or February.
Marks Hall.
Where do we go? I mean, Marks Hall would be the only other place I think you could do it.
Anywhere that you can fit the media because there won't be hardly any fans.
Well, they'll restrict it like they did football. You and I were there. Yeah. They'll cut it to whoever has to be there for local, or if you're doing like every broadcast or whatever. But Marks Hall would be fantastic. The problem's going to be what venue is equipped to handle all of that wouldn't have handled it during the season. I think that's going to be your biggest problem. It's why we didn't have neutral sites in football. Nobody wanted to host them. So does a neutral gym or a college gym want to host that if they didn't have basketball?
Isn't the Santanders already out for the Berks League playoffs?
They're out, and like Ship would be the best place in the world to have the state finals or Chambersburg. Neither one of them is going to want to have neutral site. You know, they're not going to want to host as a neutral site. Exactly.
But the PSAC, they're not going to let anybody in. Millersville's not anybody in. Nobody's going to be in their gyms. If their teams aren't playing it, there's no way in heck a high school's team's playing. And
they'll definitely stay at the Giant Center. I could see them throwing it over at the arena with half the seats missing because they don't care about attendance. But they'll definitely be in Hershey, I think.
I hope it's not at a college site because I've seen that happen with other high school district or state championship events where they go to these college sites the colleges are already shut down because they're not in class. And it's basically, okay, here you go, high school teams and officials, you guys can run the stadium as you want. And it's basically a free for all. And it doesn't really work all that well because they don't have that much help. So that's my 2 cents.
Coach Goodling, PIAA, NCAA.
Yeah, I think we'll have both of them. I think, football led the way here in the fall, and I think they'll figure a way out to do it in basketball. And I think the NCAA, they have to do it this year. So I think they will.
All right. Andy?
Yeah, NCAA will happen. I have no idea how many teams, but that's $1 billion TV contract that they lost last year, and there's no way they're going to be able to survive if they can't get some semblance of that. And yeah, I was probably going to win it. I mean, they're damn good. Although I really don't like this Luka Garza as a second coming of Will Chamberlain. That's a little too much for me. But PIAA, before this afternoon, I would have said no. But the fact that they're going to go to district champs only, I think helps, just because you're shrinking the number. The one thing I would say is if they do that, let's hope that these neutral sites are firm and fast, because let's remember last year, Wilson was going to Milton Hershey. No, you're not coming here. Okay, well, we're going to Red. No, you're not coming here. Well, now we're not going to play. So
Yeah.
I don't know. That stuff needs to be vetted out and confirmed. That's the other thing that I remember from last year. I mean, we're talking about like these football teams that
they ought to
doing
just have it
games
in
on
one
2 days'
spot
notice.
rather than various places.
Right. Well,
just have it in a bubble.
Let me follow up on Andy. Are the Cornhuskers going to be in the NCAA basketball tournament?
no, I mean,
Okay.
we lost to Georgia Tech. ET, they blew the doors off of you, but they also lost to Mercer and Georgia State. So I don't know. We're playing Creighton tomorrow. That could be a bloodbath, but I hope we beat them because God, I hate them, and that's our state. It needs to be a red state, not a blue state. So
I need Andy's swag guy because I need that zip up right there that he's got on.
And Andy has his ways. I'm telling you. I mean,
I have connections.
yeah,
I have
he
connections.
does. Yeah, he does.
You
Well,
got to pay him somehow, right, Eric?
Right.
I know Eric Thomas and Warren Goodling and Bruce Badgley and Andy has some LLhoops swag. I know that. So I got to take care of my boys, John and Jeff. We see you in the playoffs. I'll take care of everybody. All right.
Yeah, shirts, I think. I have a shirt in the closet.
Ah, nice. All right. Hey, thank you guys. It's been, we could go on, but I know how it's going to go here. We're going to have a lot of people watching.
We'll never get this thing uploaded to YouTube.
Oh, I'll get it uploaded. You bet. It'll be up there within a half an hour. Thank you. I hope to see all you guys down the road. I'm hoping.
All right, man.
All right, Dell.
You guys.
Happy holidays.
Yep.
Thank
Good
you,
night.
Good seeing you guys. Happy holidays,
Thank you, Dell.
everybody.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for having us.
Thanks a lot.
See ya.